It all started on a cold December evening. I had just moved into my grandfather's old countryside house after he passed away. It was quiet. Too quiet, actually. No honking cars, no noisy neighbors, just the occasional wind rustling through the tall pines surrounding the property. I needed the solitude to escape the chaos of city life, or at least that's what I told myself. But looking back, I think the house had been waiting for someone. Someone like me. The first night was uneventful. I unpacked, made some tea, and curled up by the fireplace with a book. The creaking wooden floors, an occasional groan of the house settling, didn't bother me. It was, after all, an old structure. But on the second night, just past 3 a.m., I heard something that made my skin crawl. A soft but deliberate thudding sound on the roof, as if someone was slowly walking above me. Not pacing, not running, just walking, one foot in front of the other. I froze. My first thought was that maybe a raccoon had climbed up there, or maybe even a bird. But the pattern, it was too human. And the steps didn't wander. They followed a straight path across the roof, paused, and then returned in the same measured rhythm. I tried to dismiss it, told myself I was overtired and that old houses made strange noises. But the next morning, curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed the ladder from the shed and climbed up. That's when I saw them. Footprints. Perfectly shaped, bare footprints on the thin layer of frost that had settled overnight. They started from one side of the roof and ended near the chimney. No prints going up, no prints going down. Just a trail as if someone had appeared, walked, and vanished. I stared at them for a long time, trying to find some logical explanation. Maybe some neighborhood kid playing a prank. But the closest neighbor was almost a mile away, and no one knew I had even moved in yet. I decided not to tell anyone. It was probably nothing. But that night, the footsteps returned. And they haven't stopped since. The footsteps came back the next night. This time, I didn't freeze. I sat upright in bed, heart pounding, and strained to hear more. The pattern was exactly the same. Step by step, deliberate and slow, walking from one end of the roof to the other. Then silence. A pause, long enough to make me think it was over. But just as I began to relax, the footsteps started again. This time heading back, as if retracing their path. I couldn't explain why, but I felt watched. Not just the eerie sensation that someone might be nearby, but an intense targeted awareness. Like whatever was up there knew I was listening. The next morning, I climbed back up. Sure enough, fresh footprints were there. Again bare. Again only on the frost. But something was different. The frost had settled evenly across the roof, except in one spot, near the chimney, where it looked like someone had been crouching. That area was completely dry. I crouched down to inspect it, my breath fogging in the cold air, and found nothing. No signs of entry, no tools, no damage. Just a disturbing absence of frost in the shape of a person. I decided to install a security camera aimed directly at the roofline. It wasn't a fancy one, just a motion-activated unit that I could check from my phone. I felt a bit foolish, like maybe I was being paranoid, but I needed answers. That night, I waited. I left all the lights off and stared at my phone screen, watching the live feed. Hours passed. Nothing. Then at 3:08 a.m., the camera activated. The screen glitched for a brief moment, like static tearing through an old VHS tape. And then the motion feed kicked in. At first, I saw nothing. Just the moonlight casting long shadows across the rooftop. But slowly, the shadow shifted. Not from the moon. It was something or someone moving. I could make out a faint outline, blurry and featureless, walking across the roof. No discernible face, no clothing, just a figure, almost transparent. As it reached the chimney, the feet froze, static again, and then nothing. When I reviewed the footage in the morning, the recording was corrupted, except for a single frame saved at the beginning. In that frame, just before the feed cut, I could make out a faint outline standing at the edge of the roof, looking directly at the camera. That day, I went into town to ask about the house's history. An elderly woman at the local diner recognized the address and immediately grew pale. "That's the old Holloway place," she whispered. "Your grandfather didn't tell you?" She leaned in close. "Back in the 40s, a drifter went missing near that property. People said he was sleeping rough, climbing roofs at night, hiding in chimneys. One morning, they found his boots near a fire pit, but never found him. Folks say his spirit never left." I laughed nervously, trying to brush it off. "Probably just an urban legend, right?" She didn't laugh back. "Honey, people don't make up stories about footprints unless they saw them." I left with more questions than answers. That night, the footsteps returned. Only this time, they didn't stop at the chimney. They walked to the edge of the roof directly above my bedroom and paused. I didn't need a camera to know. I could feel it. Something was there, watching, listening, waiting. And from that moment on, I knew this wasn't just a haunting. It was a pattern, and I was now a part of it. That night changed everything. The footsteps didn't just return. They grew louder, heavier. It was no longer the gentle thud of bare feet. It sounded like something with weight was dragging itself across the roof, slower than before, as if struggling or resisting. I lay there frozen under the covers, every nerve in my body alert. The footsteps stopped above my bed again, and then 3 distinct knocks echoed from the ceiling. Not creaks, not the house settling, actual knocks, as if something or someone was trying to get in. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I found deep impressions on the rooftop. Not footprints anymore. These were larger, less defined, as if something with elongated limbs or claws had pressed into the frost. I took photos and sent them to a friend who dabbled in paranormal research. He called back within minutes. "You need to get out of that house," he said flatly. When I asked why, he hesitated. "There's an old theory about spirits who never crossed over. Sometimes they get caught in a loop, reenacting the last moments of their lives. But when someone new enters their space, especially someone emotionally vulnerable or spiritually open, the entity may become aware that you're watching it, aware that it can interact." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means it might not be replaying anymore. It might be reacting." That same evening, I set up cameras inside the house. One in the hallway, one facing the fireplace, and one directly outside the bedroom window. I also sprinkled a thin layer of flour across the floor by the front door and windows, just to see if anything moved inside while I slept. I shouldn't have slept. Around 3:15 a.m., I woke up gasping for breath. My room was freezing. I could see my breath puffing in the dark. The heater was still on, and my window was shut tight, but it felt like the temperature had dropped below zero. I grabbed my phone to check the cameras. My heart sank. On the feed facing the fireplace, the footage had begun to stutter. Jittery movements like bad reception. Then the figure appeared, that same shape from the roof, but this time it was inside. It was crawling, not walking, across the wooden floor, limbs impossibly long and bent in all the wrong ways. The head was low, almost dragging, and there was something horrifyingly wrong with the proportions. Too tall, too thin, like a shadow stretched beyond nature. It stopped directly in front of the fireplace and lifted its head slowly toward the camera. The feed went black. I leapt out of bed and checked the hallway camera. Black. Bedroom window feed static. I ran to the living room, switching on every light as I moved. Nothing. No sign of the thing. The house was deadly quiet. Then I looked down. Footprints. In the flour I had sprinkled, there were long, unnatural impressions leading from the fireplace to the center of the room. No footprints leading in, no footprints leading out. Just a start and an end, as if something had materialized out of thin air and then vanished. The next morning, I checked all the doors and windows. Locked, no signs of forced entry. But above the fireplace mantel, something new had appeared. An old black and white photograph. It hadn't been there before. It showed a man in 1940s workwear, standing on the roof of a house that looked exactly like mine. On the back, written in faded ink, "He never left." I had never seen this photo before. I called the local historical society, hoping to find answers. When I showed them the image, one of the volunteers recognized it immediately. "That's Henry Colden. Went missing around 1947. Used to be a chimney sweeper. One night he just disappeared. Only his boots were found at the base of an old pine near your property. That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I waited in the dark, cameras rolling, phone in hand, crucifix by my side. At 3:06 a.m., the knocks returned. But this time, they weren't on the roof. They were inside. Knocking from the inside of the fireplace wall. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. The knocks from inside the fireplace didn't stop. They came again, the next night, same time, same rhythm. 3 deliberate knocks from within the bricks, as though someone or something was sealed behind the wall and wanted out. My instinct screamed at me to leave, to never return. But fear has a strange way of paralyzing you. I stayed, watching the fireplace, breath held, heart thudding. Then, on the 5th night, something changed. As the hour approached 3 a.m., I noticed a strange scent filling the room, like old smoke mixed with damp earth and rust. Not quite blood, not quite fire, but something in between. The room grew colder than it ever had before. I wrapped myself in layers, but the chill seemed to seep into my bones. This time, the knocks came, and then something more. A voice, faint, gravelly, broken like wind scraping through gravel. "Let me finish it. Let me finish." I stumbled back, nearly dropping my phone. I didn't want to believe it was real, but the camera feed caught it. The words weren't in my head. They echoed through the house. A whisper caught on audio. I reviewed the footage again and again. I even tried to enhance the sound using editing software. And then I saw it. Right as the voice whispered, the fireplace camera flickered. A figure appeared in the corner, hunched low, arm outstretched toward the hearth. Not crawling this time. Standing. And closer. Later, I tore up the rug in front of the fireplace and found something worse. The floorboards beneath had been scratched. Not recently, over years, decades. Etched into the wood were deep claw-like marks, as though someone had tried to dig through from the inside. I'm not sure what's behind the bricks, But whatever it is, it's remembering, it's waking up, and it's almost finished.